I bet those glasses make you see better.
Reveal this. Terrible.
Well,
No, I do appreciate it.
Move on. I did have a quick question as I was thinking about this. So Lily, kind of back to this other thing we were talking about, just briefly, very briefly. I was thinking about how this sounds out loud. If I said, if my daughter came to me and she was like, Dad, I want to fuck 1,000 dudes in a day to set a record.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, well, honey, that's against my moral values, and if you do that, I'm going to have to distance myself from you because that's disgusting and gross. Would your response actually be, why don't you love me, Daddy?
I never... See, we're going back in this circle again.
Yeah,
that
I
believe...
When I say it out loud, it actually sounds even worse. So your daughter comes to you, you're a man, and says, I'm gonna fuck 1,000 men in a day. And he's like, listen, this is completely...
There is nothing morally wrong with fucking 1,000 guys in a day.
He says, this is completely against my moral code. If you do this, until this behavior stops, I don't want anything else to do with you.
Stop after a day.
Really? You think that that's him not loving you? Like, really?
For me, personally, if I was a parent and my child wanted to do sex work, and that would then be my thing to be like, okay, I want to guide them through it. I want to, make sure they get all the information. I don't just want to abandon them and unlove them. You know what I mean? Like, I think it makes no sense to
I want to fuck 1,000 men
Hell
in
yeah,
a single day. Honey, please don't do this. This is reputationally damaging to you. It's horrible for our family. It's awful what you're doing. Please don't do it. If you do, I got to turn my back until you at least stop this behavior. Daddy, why don't you love me? Like, really? Does that even make sense to you?
Oh my God, we're going to go around in circles. Like, I'm going to agree to disagree. I firmly believe that as a parent, that like you should always love and stick by your child, whatever they go through and whatever they do.
Yeah, no, but I haven't agreed to your disagree. Like, if you agree to disagree, we both agree. But I haven't actually heard your disagreement. Does that actually sound correct to you? That
I don't want to keep arguing with you because I know what I believe in, and the thing is, I don't really care to keep arguing with you because I'm not going to change your opinion, and you're not going to change mine.
There's tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions who will watch the clips of the exchange here, who do want to know the answer, so I do want to know the actual answer here. The answer to, but Dad, you just don't love me because he turned his back. If you fucked 1,000 men in a day, do you actually stand behind that?
Fucking people
that's not
and
him loving you. Hang on. Let me ask the question. Do you actually stand behind the fact that that's him not loving you?
100%. Yes, I think you should stand by your child, whatever they do.
All right.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
Okay. Let's see if there's anything more here with Carly, your notes. Yeah, men should stop watching porn. No offense to you guys that do that thing, but I feel like this is a pretty common standard for women, or maybe even the preference. I think most women would prefer if their boyfriend wasn't watching porn.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that is pretty standard.
Yeah. You said that you have a take that higher body count on a guy-girl actually makes for better long-term relationship material.
I forgot I wrote that. Yeah.
You did write that.
Yeah, low-key, because I don't know.
In the guy or in the woman or both?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Because, I mean, I feel like, well, as long as it's like, they're clean, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but why does it make for a better long-term relationship?
Because they've like had experience, they've been around, they've seen things, they know what they like, they know what they don't like. They know what kind of people they get along with. They know what kind of people they don't, blah, blah, blah. And so then, like, if they're wanting to get into, like, an actual relationship with you and, like, genuinely just stick to you, then, like...
They're more likely to stick it out in a relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is, like, the sexual compatibility component, but, like, when it comes to knowing what you like in terms of a person, I don't know if you necessarily need to have sex or have sex with a lot of different people to be able to make determinations as to like personality assessments.
No, not necessarily. Like, I definitely agree that you don't have to, have like a high body count to be a good partner.
Right.
I just think that, there's a lot of stigma around that, and a lot of people are like, oh.
So do you think
gross.
body count like should not matter?
I mean, personally, for me, it doesn't matter. Like, but other people have like their own opinions and their own takes.
And do you think men who do care about body count, do you think that they're insecure for caring about it?
I mean, maybe like a little bit. I think it's mainly like if they keep bringing it up and they like compare themselves and they like just, it's like a little thing, like an issue that you can't get rid of, then that's like.
Going around the table, do you think body count matters? And do you think men who do care about body count, who maybe would disqualify a woman if she had a high body count, whatever that might be for him, do you think that would be him being insecure? Starting with you, Ayla.
Yes, it would be him being insecure, but also I strongly defend the right of people to be insecure. And I think this is fine.
Preferences?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is good.
Candace, what do you think?
I don't think it matters. I don't think the body count matters. I'm more interested in like why a person's having sex or a lot of sex. Because I think you can do the same thing with different intentions. And yeah, I would agree. I think everyone has the right to their preferences. So if someone doesn't like a high body count, that's totally fine. But I do think that there tends to be a link to some insecurity with that.
Sure.
But again, if you link it to like just like bad behavior and decision making in general, and then you see a pattern that's like not just isolated to sexual encounters, and that would be worrisome for sure.
Okay. Lily, what about you? What do you think?
I do kind of think body count matters, but more in the way of it makes you a better partner in bed. Like, you would want boxing lessons off the guy who's had 1,000 fights versus the guy who's had one fight.
Wouldn't you want, though, in a boxing match, to box the guy who has no boxing experience? So you can
lessons off, sorry.
I know, but I was just changing the analogy a little bit. But okay, so body count to you doesn't matter.
As in, I think it does matter because I think it makes you a better partner in bed.
I see. Okay, what about you?
I don't think it matters. I think that patterns matter, which just kind of speaks to what she was saying.
Yeah.
So if someone's like, almost like you see a sex addiction pattern where it's like they're just every other night finding a new person to fuck. That type of pattern matters to me much more than the body count.
Okay. And are men who do care or would disqualify a woman based solely on her body count, do you think are they insecure? Is it wrong?
I think it speaks to some insecurity. I think, again, there's some preference there, though, too. I think it's hard to analyze everybody's brain.
Sure. Carly? Well, I think you gave your take, right?
Yeah.
What about you?
I think it's all circumstantial and individual. I don't think that you can paint everybody with one brush. Everybody's different. So to me, it matters. I don't judge people for their high body counts, though.
Do you think a man would be insecure if he cared about a woman's body count, didn't want to date her because of it?
I mean, if you're going to date a porn star, then I don't think you should care about her body count. If you want to date somebody...
not a porn star.
Then...
But she has a high body count.
Well, is she broke?
She's a broke ass hoe.
Hell yeah! I mean, like,
fucking broke ass hoes over here. Not you guys. I'm just
right.
Vaguely in general.
I think again, like
California area. Okay, that's fine. What about you?
Yes, 100%.
Insecure for the guy to care about that?
Oh no. He's that's totally.
Body count matters.
Yeah.
Is it insecure?
Body count matters. I don't think it's
insecure.
What about
you?
I think it depends on the person, but I think body count does matter because it conveys what sort of quote-unquote experience you have. I don't necessarily think it's insecure for a person to care about it. I think if they care about it, they might have their own reasons.
Okay. All right. So some of you said body count shouldn't matter, doesn't matter. Curious to know, what's your body count, starting with our good friend Lily?
Fuck off.
Come on. What is it?
You think I know?
Range. Give us a range. What was it last time?
I can't remember what I said last time. Because last time still didn't count last time. I'm gonna go right now. It's probably between 500 to 1,000. That's the range I'd guess.
500 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ayla, and then we'll go around this way, starting with you. Go ahead.
Probably low 500s and 109 free.
Wait, 109 free.
Like unpaid.
Unpaid.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many do you think paid? Or
well, I have a CRM, but I haven't updated it in a bit. So probably around 450, I think, clients I've had.
Do you have an exact number or not?
I can go look. I did look up the exact number at one point, but my guess
it's it's about 500.
My guess is around 450 paid and around it's 109 specifically. I have a spreadsheet unpaid.
109 unpaid,
yeah.
500 paid. Okay.
450-ish, but yeah.
450.
So
okay.
roughly the total
like
should be low 50s, low 500s, maybe 550.
Okay, got it.
I don't want to claim more valor than I have.
All right. What about you?
Personal life is 9,
okay.
And for work, I don't know because someone pulled up I guess there's an explicit version of IMDb basically, and it says all of your scenes, but it includes solos, and I don't know if we're counting women.
Right.
So that's all lumped in there.
Yeah, counting the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So when I first started working, I would work with like 12 guys, and that was it, and just kind of go through that.
I was gonna say there's quite a small
It's pretty low for me.
So 9 civilian life.
Yeah.
And you said like 12.
Well, no, I started with 12, and then towards the end of my career, I added a couple because I was working in the UK a lot, and they're different performers, but it's not.
Maybe 15
it's not very
to 20
high.
or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
All right. What about you?
If I have to estimate, probably between 23 and 28.
23 to 28. Okay.
Mine's actually 8 because I was in a long-term relationship.
Oh, okay. 8 because you were in a long-term relationship. All right. Go ahead.
I don't really want to answer this question.
You don't want to?
No, I don't. I'll tell you
But
the amount of men that I've wanted to have sex with, that I had sex with, since probably about 6 or 7. That I was like, this guy is somebody I want to let in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, didn't you say something about body count, or like you're like asking like how do you count it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that an answer? I don't like.
It is because she's sent in it non-consensual.
Well, like I wouldn't say like it was.
Were some
No, she didn't actually say non-consensual.
No, I said she's hinting.
Yeah, it was just like
No,
it wasn't
she
like that.
didn't even say
It's like that I let or that I felt sorry for. Like I don't want to count those guys because it wasn't something.
But if he did count those people, he did actually consent to.
What was that?
Hold on.
You were just saying that you don't want to include people where it was like pity sex.
Or something like just that like.
But if you included everybody you consented to, not
because I wanted to. That was like. I like this guy enough to do that.
No. Hang on. Not wanted to, but consented to.
I think that's a fine line on that consent thing because I don't want to claim that like I was S8 or anything like that because I put myself in those positions. But I don't think that they warrant one of my numbers.
Why not? If you consented to the sex.
To me, consent is like I'm horny and do that to me right now.
Yeah, but like
not
a pity
because
fuck is consent.
I
for
was
sure.
like,
Wouldn't you agree? At least like a pity fuck is definitely consent.
What if I didn't if I regretted it?
Yeah,
after
regret.
And
yeah. So a lot of times. Yeah. So when it comes to regret, for instance, there's many cases I can cite of women who regretted sleeping with a man the next day and then called it SA, and then when it was
but that's not fair.
It was clearly not the case. What I'm asking is what the count is that you actually consented to that was not SA.
It's don't think that you're understanding my position when I'm letting you know that, like, I don't want to call it SA because I put myself there, but I didn't go there with the intention that I wanted to do that. Like, it had happened because, you know, out of just, like, not leaving me alone until it happened, or, like, you know, all kinds of different scenarios. And I learned from each one of them, and I felt every time I walked away from those, I felt like shit, and I didn't feel good about myself, and so I didn't put myself in those positions anymore. It kind of took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah, there's this one time where I was in the middle. This was in Helldivers too. I was in the middle of this bug hunt, and we were just destroying everything, and it was great. My wife came over, and she's like, let's go to the bedroom. And I was like, no, I'm in the middle of Helldivers 2 and I'm just destroying everything. And she was like, no, we got to go to the bedroom. And I was like, damn it. And I went and I failed the raid. It sucked, right? I couldn't believe it that this had happened, right? But it did. And I totally consented to it. So the thing is like, I'm not asking about your fucking regret because I don't give a shit about your regret. I'm asking if it was not SA, what's the actual body count? That's what I'm asking.
Under 35.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
What about you?
21.
A single digit. I've only ever been in long-term relationships, but that's between me and God.
Okay, all right. We have Davon Jackson here. What exactly is the insecurity? I can be confident that I'm the best lay out of 1,000 and still not want to date your nasty bunnies. Thank you, Davon. Thank you, Davon. I do appreciate the message, sir. Much appreciated. We also have some super chats. We have John, guys, W's in the chat for John for the big $200 super chat. Thank you so much, man. No more pronouns. Praise the Lord. Wow, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Why are we interviewing girls rejected from the Bunny Ranch? Hello. Has anybody here been rejected from the Bunny Ranch?
What's the Bunny Ranch?
It's a brothel, I guess, in Vegas. All right, John, thank you for the 2 super chats, man. That was very generous of you. Much appreciated, guys. If you want, get a TTS and $200. We got a few more things. Then we're going to try to get this wrapped up here pretty soon. Let me just check the notes. I think we got... Okay, we're just going to do Candace's notes, and that's pretty much it. Then we'll do like a roast session, then wrap.
A roast session.
Roast session. This whole show, I guess that's fair. That's fair.
The meeting hasn't started yet.
From the very beginning, that's fair. So Candace, you have an IMDb bio.
Oh boy.
It starts by describing you as buxom and shapely, 5'3" brunette knockout of mixed Spanish and Japanese descent. How do you feel, Candace, being called buxom? I didn't even know what that was. What is buxom?
I don't know. I would be guessing. I think it's like
kind
of, it's like an energy thing, right? Like feisty. Oh no, buxom.
It's real smart. Of a woman, plump, especially with large breasts. They
very flattering.
Buxom.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's flattering.
No, it's not. None of that has been flattering. No.
Let's see here. You said that you see. We'll save that for later. Hold on. Body count. Really, we were just talking about it. I saw you were on this podcast. You claimed that the average is 5. And was this like based off of like
other people's
ALA's
research
data? Or
no, I mean, you can probably Google it and like see what studies will pop up, but it's referenced a lot in a lot of like evolutionary psychology or like professional dating psychologists. There's this one guy in Britain, I can't remember his name.
David.
He's got great hair. Right. He does all of the rotations, but it was one of his podcasts that he was going through the research. I think he's in Cambridge, maybe.
Do you know the date of the? Because I've heard the 5 number since the 90s. So
no, I mean they were. Maybe I don't know when the research was conducted. No.
Okay.
I actually thought it was pretty low. And then I was wondering if people were being honest with self-reporting, and then that's why I asked Ayla earlier today. I was like, "Do you believe that it's 5? Because that seems exceptionally low." But I think it's also skewed because when you go online, everything that generates the most views and gets the most, it pops up on the most algorithms. The algorithms is the more salacious takes. So we think that being promiscuous is more common than it actually is.
I've seen some other studies that put it a little bit higher, like 7, 8. I still think that that's dubious, though. And then I also do wonder, what is the age cohort of the people that they're looking at? Because I wonder if you're pulling from you're surveying, part of the survey includes 70 and 80-year-olds. I don't know how material that would be to sort of the modern dating landscape.
What age would you be interested in?
What, in dating?
No. To have the information.
I think 18 to 40 is 18
but that's
to
still
18
such
to,
a big gap.
It is, and there's a lot of differences between Gen Z,
That's
millennials.
A whole lot of years,
it is, but 18 to 35 is the cohort of people that are more likely to be single, that you're more likely to encounter when you're dating. But
I have the data on this, at least. I mean, it's a relatively liberal population, so it's probably slightly inflated, but it raises at least the median. I mean, depending on if you want the median or average, raises to around 10 when people hit about 40. So
10 at 40.
Yeah. So my guess is it's slightly inflated, but not significantly.
But I'm just wondering if they're including the 60 and 70-year-olds. They're so far removed from the dating pool.
So my graph goes like this, and it slowly evens out at 40 with a very slight increase at that point. So 50, 60-year-olds in my data were closer to maybe I think it was 15 people or something.
Interesting.
But this is median, not average. So median is when you split the population half and half, and then average outliers can pull that up really high. The average body count for older people in my data set specifically, which again is liberal, was around I think low 20s, 20-something.
So, and when you say older people, 40 to 50?
People in their 50s and 60s. My sample size for that was a lot lower, so low confidence.
Interesting. Okay. And do you, if we're looking at projections, do you think people who are 20 now, do you think that that'll be their body counts when they're 50?
I mean, unclear. I didn't track across time. It's possible that different generational pressures will cause different body counts.
Yeah. But to me, it's I don't know, going to college, 5? I don't know.
But going to college is in itself a big selection.
But a lot of women, don't the majority of people go to college?
What is it, 60% of people?
And there's even more women who go to college. But I remember when I was in college, and this was before the dating apps. Granted, Santa Barbara's a bit of a party. Anyways, maybe I'm biased a little bit here, but the shit I saw anecdotally, and then just if a woman has a 5 body count in her first freshman fall quarter semester, she's a saint. I mean, not really, but that's kind of it's kind of relatively, it's kind of low.
Where I grew up is extremely high. I think this is very cultural.
Because I mean, my own experience is going out. A lot of these girls, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, they're in college, they're drinking, partying, doing drugs. And I think actually there's some studies that indicate that Gen Z, they're actually drinking and partying way less. I think there's probably a bunch of reasons for that. But when I was in college, it was super, super common. You were an outlier if you weren't partying in college, drinking in college, right?
Yeah.
Now it seems, anyways, with Gen Z, it's a little bit shifting, a little different. But these girls would go out and sleep with a new guy maybe once a week. Sometimes they do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe 1, 2, 3 guys in a weekend.
Yeah.
So for a girl to just have a, you say the average is 5, I'm thinking back to my college experiences. I'm they do that. Yeah. They do 10 or 20. They're fresh, their freshman year.
No, I agree. I have serious doubts too. It's just the person that was bringing up the study, and I don't know if you can find it or not, or at least that podcast host that was saying the statistic, it didn't seem truthful. No.
Well, a lot of the U.S. is very religious. I mean, were those people going and partying religious? My guess is you fell into a certain section of people that were likely to party. All the religious people are staying home.
Wait a second. When you say a good portion of the U.S. is very religious, what do we mean by very religious? Do we mean that they self-identify as being religious, or do we mean that they're actually practicing the religion?
Yeah, I think we could check maybe church attendance as a proxy. I agree that there are a lot of lukewarm Christians. I used to be very Christian.
Just the self-ID is not going to cut it.
I understand the argument. But even if you are just self-IDing and not walking the walk quite as hard, still being in a culture that like really has pressures against it, I think it's still going to bring the body count down.
Atheists are in the same culture, so that makes no sense, right? So atheists are in the same culture as the self-ID'd Christians. And if the self-ID'd Christians aren't doing church attendance or any of the Christian things, then how are they not just in the same culture that the atheists are in?
I agree, but I think a good proportion of the U.S. does go to church pretty regularly, which I agree is not proof that they are.
No, a good portion of the U.S. doesn't go to the church or go to
I could be wrong.
Regularly. They go occasionally. That's the vast majority of the self-ID Christians.
We can just check.
The ones, though, who are more rigorous have completely different stats, right? So the ones who are more rigorous, they're going to have different stats when it comes to how many children they've had. They're going to have different stats when it comes to STDs. You're going to have different stats for all these things. So it does seem that the more rigorous that you're practicing the religion, the more that this would be a determining factor, right? So that's why I want to clarify whether we're just talking about self-ID or actual rigorism, because then the numbers greatly change, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is reflected in my data. You are correct.
So I'm not willing to say then that the vast majority are religious, like you're saying. Then I think that is almost strawmanning your own position.
I don't think I said vast majority, but we can just check the data.
You did. You said the vast majority of are religious.
I don't think I did, but if I did, I misspoke. I think a good chunk of we can just check that, we can Google it. And if it's like, oh, it's 30%, I'll be like, sure, I'm down to say 30%. But I just think that
the best place for this is Pew, right? Not just Google. You go to Pew Research.
Yeah,
Pew Research actually dove into this and looked at the rigorism versus the non-rigorism when it came to the studies. And we can see that the more rigorous you are, the more that these things actually apply to you versus just self-ID. The only reason I'm being hyper-specific here, because I know you love that, is also because I want to make sure that when you're giving out this data, when you say to Brian, well, most people are religious, or well, I'm not sure. We got to be careful with that language, right? When you're giving stats, especially your own.
I'm not giving my own stats for most people are religious. I just thought there's a bunch of people in the U.S. who are in religious culture, and we're just generally not seeing them when we go to party colleges. If you're partying in a college and people are going out drinking, you're probably not seeing good, God-fearing Christians who are going to church. They're not included in that sample. So,
well, maybe they used to party, but now they're Christian.
Maybe.
Andrew calls this the Great Ho Reformation. Sorry, I'm trying to do it in Andrew's voice, but...
Well, I think it's so my best, Protestant version is so I do miss the Protestant fire and brimstone preachers. You're gonna go straight to hell, you harlot. Those guys, I thought that they were kind of based. I'm not gonna lie. But now it's become kind of this much broader, what I would commonly refer to as the sewing circle Christian. And the idea here is, I think that what has occurred is that because Christianity is designed specifically for the reformation of the soul, it's the idea of regeneration, the idea that no matter how badly you've sinned, that Jesus Christ is still there for you. That is true. However, there are a huge amount of women who try to utilize Christianity to buy a new reputation. They think that because they have been saved, now their reputation has also been saved. And that's just simply not the case. Your reputation is still your reputation. So imagine, for instance, if a priest was a PDF, which that happens, right? That happens. We don't salvage their reputation because they're also priests. Instead, they still get burdened with the reputation. In fact, even more so because they're a priest. And yet, for some reason, when it comes to prostitutes with thousands of men in the body count who suddenly are part of women's liberation Christianity, suddenly they say, well, wait a second, you can't judge what I've done in this and that, nor my authority towards any biblical anything, because I bought a new reputation with my religion. That is a modern phenomenon.
We'll get right back into it. I need to let a couple chats come through. Yo, Spicy Ween, thanks.
Spicy Ween 89 donated $200.
Thank you, man.
It's nice seeing a panel void of trolls.
That was a good show. Good panel.
My German shepherds agree and now have to pee. It's been real.
Yo, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you, Spicy. Guys, W's in the chat for Spicy Ween 89.
And German Shepherds are the best breed.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
You would have a German Shepherd.
He's the goodest boy.
Aww.
Yo, OJ, thank you, man.
OJ Simpson donated $200.
Thank you, Juice.
Sketchy Liv Tyler freaking me the F out. Katarina, you're not gangster. Candice, sweet Candice, you're looking as beautiful as ever. Honestly, pretty bright too. You still as tight as I left you.
What the fuck? Chill out.
So impressive.
OJ, holy shit. Oh my goodness.
It's just a C and a Y.
Have you ever like worked with somebody and then they're there's like something like in their eyes that just clicks and you're like, this motherfucker masturbate. Like, has that happened? You're like, this guy watched my stuff, you know?
Like in my personal life?
Like personal life.
Or on a scene?
Like no, like personal life or even like in business or something. And then they kind of like do a double take and they're like, wait, oh, you know?
Yeah, every guy I've been with has seen it before.
Every guy you've been, like, you've dated or?
That I've dated or slept with. Well, not dated because my first boyfriend was before I got into the industry. Yeah. And then the second one I ended up marrying. But, like, guys that were, like, either part of, like, the open or, like, whatever. Yeah. Okay. They've all seen.
I guess you had another thing here on body count. But, I mean, you went to college, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know. You saw some shit.
I went to Myrtle Beach, okay? So it was a party university. Yeah. So, I mean, girls would probably get 5 over the weekend. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's when I see that number. I'm like, you aren't being... The sorority girls? Are you kidding me?
Well, the crazy thing is the sorority girls tell the frat guys that they're virgins, but they're not.
No.
Other shit like that.
Yeah. So I think that's probably what's happening with a lot of those polls. Yeah. A lot of dishonesty.
I do think people, even I think with anonymous polls, I think people, like... still don't want to tell the truth even then. So.
Yeah, they don't want to admit it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but body count, you said, what are you trying to gain from that question? You don't think it's a whole lot. I think you can get a good amount of info from the body count.
I think superficially, sure, but I think that there are more important questions to ask if you're trying to date someone or if you're trying to figure out if that's a good match or not. So again, there can be, and coming from the industry, I was in there for plenty of years. I've seen women that go in and they treat it like a business and they're making decisions like in alignment with whatever their values are or goals are. And then I've seen train wrecks go in and they're like very much there because of like a survival reason, right? So I'm more curious as to like why you're doing that action and to like dive deeper into the behavior instead of just looking at the behavior and saying that is that's indicative of like this personality trait across the board. And it might be true, like there might be certain truths that are linked to that. Absolutely, I'm not denying that, but I'm just saying if you're going to investigate someone as a partner or a life partner, there's deeper questions that you have to be asking.
I agree. Like, are they in therapy? What psychoactive medications do they take?
Those are important. Absolutely. I've had people, not romantic relationships, but like employees lie about like mental health stuff or that like they're not on medications. And I mean, I know that HIPAA and all of that, but that's important information to know.
Sure. You did also indicate, I think this is the last thing on body count. You said there was no correlation to faithfulness, infidelity when it came to body count.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I did want to challenge you a little bit on this. There's a bunch of, at least from what I've seen, there's a bunch of studies that seem to indicate that there is a correlation.
The sample size with those is really off, and then I don't know what a delta was. I was giving it to someone who's much smarter than me that can actually read stats, and I sent it to him, and I was like, can you like tell me, because this goes against the argument or the conversation that we were having the other day, and he said there's a really high delta, and I don't know what that means in that.
Like a span, like a standard deviation. Well, not
like there was an issue with the delta in those research papers.
Or like so the gap.
I don't know. I'm not a statistician or a researcher or a journalist, as we established earlier in the podcast. So
any update, by the way?
Wait a second. Hang on here. I'm sorry. I can't let this go. How can you take issue with the stats if you don't know what your issue with the stats is?
No, I'm saying the sample size was my issue, is that it was like a really small sample size.
What's wrong with the sample size?
Well, if it's super small, then you can't apply it to the masses, right?
Well, it depends on what we're trying to study and
anything.
What the controls are for the sample size.
If you take 20 people, you can't say, well, these 20 people did this one thing, so then that's indicative of anyone that commits that behavior.
Depends on what we're trying to study.
I just don't think 20 is accurate.
You could take 20 as a sample size and have it be representative of something. But in this case, are you saying that the sample size, hang on, in this case, are you saying the sample size was 20?
No, I don't know. I remember it being small. I think it might have been.
Yeah, what does that mean, though? So this is the problem, right? When you get into the details, like the gal who's
so
next to you,
boring
she's
to
actually
me.
going to literally agree with everything I just said. She has no choice.
No,
this
sure.
hang on. This is stats. This is how they work, right?
No,
you
of course.
can have sample size which are small, but they do have some kind of statistical relevance or significance. In this case, you just saying, well, the sample size from my view was small doesn't actually mean anything.
It means something. It doesn't mean nothing.
It could, well, maybe, but maybe not.
It indicates the level of confidence we can draw from the
Yeah, but
the
what
thing.
is, okay, well then what is small? Tell me what small is.
We have
as
to
a
pull up
number.
the study.
You can do a calculation on the level of confidence.
Yeah,
So it
tell
depends
me
on
what small is. She says it's small, but won't
I
give you
would
the
say
number.
for me, anything under 1,000, I would consider a small sample size. Like if I were to pull one person at this table and say,
And are you saying that
Wait,
these
hold on,
studies have less than 1,000?
hold on. Let her finish. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to know that.
well, no, because I mean the rules aren't being applied evenly, so it's like I can't interject at all, but then I keep getting interrupted,
You can definitely
and that's not.
interject.
No, because you're like, no, let me finish, but then it's different rules for me, and then that's not
Well,
fair.
I did just
I know, I
try.
appreciate
did
that.
just
Thank
try
you.
to.
Thank you.
Yeah, because
No.
it's lightning, the reason that I interject very quickly is just for quick clarification.
But when I do it, it's not allowed for quick clarification.
It is allowed. I'm happy
And that's
for
one
it.
of my critiques about the show, right? It's just like I'm all for debate and like having ideas proven wrong, but there's a way to do it that's like out of curiosity and in good faith and doing it in respect, and then there's like a way that you can do it with tone and intent that is like it's bad
Okay,
faith.
well, there's literally 8 people on the panel. I've spoken very little. I'm having a lightning round with you. I'm getting clarifications quickly.
You popped in. I didn't even know this was a debate. I thought we were just like going over topics, and then like you popped in, and then
We are going over
okay,
topics.
Yes. If you're saying that there's not a too small for a sample size, do you think that I can go ask one person a question?
Didn't say that.
Okay, so what would not be like? What would be an appropriate size for you then? So like
It's
when?
going to depend on what it is that we're studying, why, and what the control factors are. So this is my whole problem.
Oh, I'm saying controls, but like I'm not sure that you understand how controls work.
Controls are super important for any study. Yes. Wouldn't you agree?
Like controls are important for certain types of things that you're studying. You can't
No,
just
for all
throw
types
out.
of
No, you.
No, for all
This
types
is
of
like.
things. There's no science is not possible.
I understand how to run studies. You don't need controls
No, you
for
don't
all things
understand,
that
which
you
is why
study.
Your studies are all bullshit.
You haven't
Every study
read
is
my
only-
studies, dude. Listen,
Yes, I have dove into your studies, which is how I knew that teenagers were oversampled in all of them. And they're all bullshit. That aside,
no.
hang on, that aside, can you tell me how you can have science absent controls, madame?
You can absolutely have science absent controls. Like for example, science is testing a hypothesis, right? And like let's say I have a hypothesis here that like maybe the people who looked worse when they were made into old people actually have higher body counts. How would you propose we have a control for this hypothesis?
Well, wait a second. Let's back up. Your hypothesis is what?
That the people who looked worse when they were aged up have higher body counts. This is my hypothesis, hypothetically.
Yeah, great. So you're going to test this hypothesis.
Yeah, so what would you suggest be the control?
Wait. Are we testing the hypothesis? Because that's the next part of the scientific method, right?
Yeah, we could test it by...
Okay, so how can you have a test absent a control?
I'm proposing the hypothesis. I'd like to know how you would propose that we control for
this. It doesn't matter how I would do it. I'm asking how could it even be done absent a control?
The way that I would test this hypothesis is I would ask people to, like, for example, I would figure out how bad we look in the things, maybe assign a rating so we can have a number.
Control.
No, that's not a control.
Yeah,
okay,
no,
do we
it's
just
not.
have like very different meanings of the word? What do you mean when you say control?
No, we don't have very different meanings of the word control.
Assigning a number to a way a face looks is not a control.
In science, what do you think a control is?
A control is, let's say I give a medication to a group of people because I want to see if it has an effect. I also measure the group of people that have not received that medication as a control to see if there's a difference between the populations.
So in sociology, you're saying there's no controls?
I'm saying there can be controls. I'm saying Listen to me talk for a second. Yeah. What I'm saying is that there are some types of hypotheses for which testing does not require controls. And I'm giving you a very narrow example. For example, I'm checking to see if there's a correlation in this group between the apparent age of being aged up and a body count. And I would do this by looking at the number assigned to the age, and I would look at the body count, and I would run a correlation.
What you've done is you've created a control ruling other things out.
That's not what a control is. A control is taking another group and then checking to see if your intervention had an effect depending on the group.
That's one type of control. The other thing you talked about is another type of control.
We are measuring two variables.
All the scientific. Are
you using the word control?
Stop. All the scientific control is doing is controlling for a variable. The very first thing that you gave me was a variable control, you fucking dummy.
So you're saying you're using the word...
How do you not know this shit? You're a fucking... Yes, the very first thing you gave me was a fucking variable control. The very first thing you said was a variable control.
So what you're saying is that if we are testing the correlation between two... Sorry, everything's happening suddenly.
It's so embarrassing for you. I can't even believe that you just said that, but go ahead.
It would be effective if everyone did it, though.
Well, how are you feeling right now? Do you feel like you're like having a fun time dominating?
Oh my God!
Because I really think that maybe you don't know how science works.
How does my mental state help you explain what a fucking scientific control is when the first thing you said was a scientific control ruling out X thing? That's a control.
No, a control is when you make sure that you're testing a group to make sure that it is not being affected by your intervention. It's a control group.
That's one form of control.
Okay, or you can test two variables to see if there's a correlation. And are you saying that
the very first control that you gave us?
I have never in my life heard the word control used to refer to one of the variables, which was true. I could be wrong. I am willing to say I was wrong if it turns out that standard science.
If you're setting parameters for an experiment, everything that you're setting which would rule X variable out would be a control.
Okay, what do you mean everything that I'm saying would rule X variable out? Like, what am I saying would rule X variable out?
Okay, so if we want a control for this, like, okay, my hypothesis is that there's flint, which makes this flame happen, right? So I can add a variance, I can add 100 different variances of controls to this, can't I? I could take the flint out, for instance, or possibly I can add multiple flints, or I could say, well, we're not going to do that at all, we're only going to do X. All of those things would be controls in the experiment for how this flint made this lighter work. You're talking about statistics when it comes to studies. The very first thing you say is the way that I would do this is I would divide X by Y. You're introducing a control which rules other things out. You're trying to narrow the process to affirm the You're trying to narrow the process to affirm the hypothesis. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I understand attempting to rule things out.
That's a control. You can't even do experiments without controls. That's my whole point.
I think you're coming from an extremely different type of science than I am, or else you don't understand how the science that I'm doing works. I'm not sure which one is the case.
I can't wait to hear this. Tell me how we can have science absent a control for an experiment. All experiment by itself is literally inferring that there's controls, or we couldn't have an experiment.
Okay, let's think of a slightly simpler example. Let's say I want to see if there's a correlation between height and weight in a population. How would you propose that we test this?
Between height and weight? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I told you my strategy for the last one. Can you tell me your strategy for this one?
Why would it matter what my strategy is?
Just so that I know how you're thinking about this.
I don't know. I mean, I have no idea.
I know that it is like, you like to put me on the defensive by asking a lot of questions, and then you won't answer questions because that would put you on the defensive.
I don't know how I would conduct such a study. Why would that matter?
Well, just think. Do we have a whole bunch of people, and we're trying to see...
Like, literally, what would the relevancy be, regardless of how I answered, right? To whether or not...
Well, it's how you do science.
It would have the addition of controls.
I'm just curious how you would test to see if there's a correlation between height and weight. Just how would you do the science? What's your strategy?
I have no idea. I've never thought about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there are ways to do this. There's statistical things we can run. Like we make a chart, X and Y axis. It's a chart. If you would like to call one of the axes a control, we can put that word on that, if that makes you happy.
What else would it be?
The X axis. It's the X and Y axis. It's like you plot the data on a graph. This is just the way that it works.
And why are we doing that, though?
Well, I'll explain.
For what? Because we're controlling for what?
We're not controlling for anything. We're testing to see if there's a correlation. Do you know what correlations are?
So we're controlling for a correlate.
We're not. We're running a calculation on the. Do you know what a correlation is?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what, just to make sure that you understand?
What a correlate is?
What a correlation is. Like, how is a correlation calculated?
It would be something that could be loosely or vaguely or non-vaguely associated with some other property.
Very close, yes. It helps tell you how much you can predict one variable by knowledge of the other variable. So, for example, if we want to check the correlation between height and weight.
I don't care about a monologue. I'm asking how it's not a control.
Your question makes no sense. I can explain to you how correlations work. I can explain to you p-values.
I don't care about how correlations work. I'm asking about controls, not correlation.
Controls are relevant for certain types of questions.
Perhaps they are.
I'm trying to say controls are not a
controls right now. And if you say,
I think you.
Okay, I have a graph and it divides it in half, and it's putting this half over here, and this half over there. You have now introduced a way to control what your experiment's going to be.
I can continue. So if we have a graph, X and Y axis like this, and then we plot everybody's height and weight along it, so like one axis is height and the other axis is weight, and you have a whole bunch of dots on this graph. What you can do is you can run basically do a calculation that shows you a trend line to see if the dots slowly kind of increase with the Y axis the higher you get on the X axis. And then you do a calculation of the square root of the all of the points from the trend line, and then basically from that you get what's called the R value. And this is how far away different points are from being tightly correlated. So, for example,
that makes total sense to me.
Yeah. So, for example, height.
I just want to read a simple thing for you. An experimental control refers to a group or element within the scientific experiment that remains unchanged or serves as a baseline comparison or divider from the experimental group. Mm-hmm. Everything you just explained was a control.
No, I explained to you a correlation.
No. You explained how to control
the thing
for
that
correlates.
Yes. So you want something that's unchanged from the group.
Yeah.
So for example, if I'm giving you medication, then this means that I am introducing some sort of influence, and so I have a control to check the difference between those groups. That's what a control is, and I think this is great and fantastic and very important in science, and a lot of science doesn't have controls, and I think you're correct to be going, why are there not controls?
I am correct. You're right. It's
However, this is a different concept from the...
science is only as good as its controls, and you haven't actually given me a way in which we can conduct an experiment absent controls.
Well, I'm describing how we can find the correlation between height and weight.
Yeah, I'm not asking about how you can describe correlates.
Guys.
How can we run an experiment which refers to a group or element within a scientific experiment that remains either unchanged, serves as a baseline for comparison, or divides the experimental group? How could you even do it? How?
That's a great question. How would you do it if we're trying to test height and weight?
I'm asking you.
We don't, because this is not
you
how
could just choose an age. Can we move on?
All right, we can move on.
Everybody's the same age. There's your.
I mean, you guys can wrap it up, but if this is going to go on another 20 minutes, I have to cut it here. So you guys can, if you can wrap it up quickly, we can continue a little bit because.
Yeah, so I'll just wrap it up quick. What I said was science is only as good as its controls. Right? She ends up agreeing with me. Yes, you're right, actually. This is very important to the scientific process. Experiments are really only as good as their controls. She says, though, you can have experiments absent controls, but actually didn't give us any experiments absent controls, just literally gave us experiments where she starts with the baseline of having controls for her experiments. That was my whole point. The thing is, I'm not sure how you can even conduct an experiment absent controls. I think it's even inferred in experiment that you are controlling X, Y, Z based on what this definition is for the thing. That's my whole point. But back to what we're originally talking about, you just saying sample size X really small doesn't actually mean anything. Small is not a scientific referent. Mm-hmm. It's a referent to a mind state of is this cell phone small? Is this cigarette small? I have no fucking idea what small means here because it's not a scientific referent. A scientific referent would be anything under X would not be appropriate due to, you know, fucking XYZ, whatever. Right? Small doesn't mean anything.
Is there like a preferred amount of people for a survey though, or for research that scientists like? Is there like a golden number that people try to get to, or at least a minimum?
Depends on what we're talking about.
No, in general, I'm sure that something would apply to across the board, like a goal. Maybe they don't hit it every time, but is there typically like a golden number?
I'm not.
I say 300 to 400.
I'm not actually
3
sure.
to 400.
This is what I aim for minimum.
But on what though? 300 to 400 for what?
We're trying to establish what small means. So I'm saying that I'm sure that there probably is a minimum that scientists would like to get in order to be.
It depends on what it is that we're studying and what it is. What it depends on what it is specific. Like this. Listen, I know that how this sounds, but it actually does matter. Depends on what we're studying for what a sample size would be appropriate to what group. Like for instance. 100 or 200 people may be fine for like transgender people because there's so few of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's so few that could be a good representation of a sample size. I'm not saying it is, by the way, Chair One, I can see you already autistically gurping. I said it could be. I'm just giving you the idea that some groups may have very narrow windows, and so smaller sample sizes could be fine. So it depends on what we're studying and why.
Let's turn to feminism. So Donald Trump has been lauded as the great new feminist of the United States. This comes from his executive order banning trans athletes in women's sport. Let's take a look at him, surrounded by grateful women and girls as he did this.
You know, if you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay, do you want...
I don't think I've ever seen a finer feminist, Destiny.
I mean, this is like classic Republicans. Like Donald Trump tweets out at 4 a.m. that he's going to make the sun shine, and then at 6 a.m. the sun comes up and everybody worships him for it. I'm pretty sure, didn't the NCAA already roll back a lot of the trans participation in sports in the United States? And then I feel like we've already seen like the Olympic make moves against it. Like we've already seen like, I mean, in your country, in the United States, across the world, people have kind of like rolled back a little bit on a lot of the trans youth, especially the medication stuff.
Yeah, but you said the phrase there. When you say it's been a little bit and it's been piecemeal, sport by sport and age groups and so on. What Trump has done with one sweep of his pen is say no more of it at all, right? There will be no more trans athletes in women's sport, period. Now, I personally think this is absolutely the right thing to do. I think it's become the new doping, where people who have an unfair advantage have been, beating women, removing women from women's teams in, say, the Olympics and so on, actually beating up women, as we saw in the Paris Olympics, where somebody reportedly banned from the World Championships with male chromosomes literally beat up one female opponent so badly she quit after 40 seconds in the ring. So I do think this is a really important thing. Do you agree with him?
I don't think this is a very important thing. I don't even know if he can enforce this through executive order. Like, I don't know if this is going to be like some kind of Title IX challenge or whatever. I don't know what the courts are doing with this right now. It's just, I just don't think this is very relevant in the overall scheme of U.S. or world politics right now. I mean, if people don't want women competing with trans women, I especially at the college level and beyond, I don't really have a problem with that. I never really had a problem with that. I don't know if these two groups of people should be competing with each other. This is like a blip on the grand scale of things, I think.
You know what's interesting, Andrew? I've talked to quite a few on the left since the election. They've moved from the position before the election. I'm not saying Destiny was one of them. I can't remember, and you can clarify if you want, Destiny. But a lot of them are like, absolutely, trans women should be allowed to compete in women's sport, blah, 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 blah. And Biden and Kamala Harris supported this with actual policies endorsing it. And now the position is, you know what? Nobody cares. It's a thing. I don't have a view. I don't have a view. And I think it's because, to their shock and horror, the single most effective political ad of modern times turned out to be that trans ad that Trump did, ending with Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you, but also including this issue of women's sports and women's safety and the issue of putting, as we had in England, in Scotland, actually, a male rapist who suddenly identified as a woman and got put in a women's prison. It cost the First Minister of Scotland her job. I think it's a big issue, far bigger than Democrats want to admit. And it's interesting, the narrative has changed from we're all in favour to actually it's just a small thing, we don't care about it.
Yeah, this has been a major setback for LGBTQ, period. The trans issue has been the entry gateway for the one of the most brutal attacks against the left in modern times. And all you really have to do is just ask basic logistical questions like, okay, which prisons do they go to? You know what I mean? We were past bathrooms. We were into prisons and can children get gender reassignment surgery, things like this. This has always been a very, very unpopular position for leftists, but they can't really back away from it because the T got attached to the LGB, right? So they could never really back away from it. They've had to kind of defend it tooth and nail. To Destiny's credit, he's always had a more nuanced position on this of I don't care, at least to my knowledge. But ultimately, this is not popular for them. It's never been popular for them. When you're talking about what Trump is doing with the gender binary, I somewhat disagree. Not that the thing I agree with is that he proposed at a government top-down level. The United States only recognizes two genders. Now he means sexes, male and female, right? That's what he's alluding to there. But I do think it actually was very punishing for feminists to have fought all those years for their sports teams and then have men just go in and kick the holy shit out of them, right? So that actually mobilized, Well, but I mean, it mobilized a lot of those feminists to move away from the left because they were like, wait a second, this actually wasn't the liberation we signed up for, right? We spent all this time fighting for this. And now you can just basically put on a wig and go break all of our records. I mean, it's just a huge loser for the left. And
I agree. Desi, I want to read you a quote from Andrew Wilson he posted this week. The most disappointing thing about feminists is how made out of glass they are. With the slightest pushback, they break. They demand equality until you talk to them like you would a man. It's actually comical. Would you concur with him?
I mean, that's everybody in politics. I mean, everybody's a snowflake depending on what the issue you're talking about is. I don't think that it's ever been a huge issue on most of the left when it comes to trans stuff. I think there's a vocal minority on Twitter and in colleges that scream about it. I think it seems like it's a huge issue because Republicans wanted it to be a huge issue. Even that commercial you were talking about was quoting something that Kamala said in 2019. So it seemed like some huge, ever-present issue. But I don't know. I guess I'm looking more towards like domestic policy, like things related to immigration or healthcare or what's happening right now in our executive branch or foreign policy. Like I thought the war in Ukraine was supposed to end on day one. I didn't know that we were signing up to be owners of Greenland and the Gaza Strip and the Panama Canal. These things I think are more important, at least to me. But I don't know. Maybe some people are really powered by what Republicans think.
I don't know. I got a 13-year-old daughter. And I got to say, if I was living in America, she was born there actually, but if I was living in America with a 13-year-old daughter who likes sport, I would be very exercised about this. And particularly if she had to share changing rooms with biological men who said, I'm now a woman.
Yeah, I think I'd be more worried about my daughter like dying in Texas, like trying to get a medical procedure done because I'm pretty sure there have been 3 deaths now so far in Texas of young women that are pregnant that can't have medical procedures done because the doctors have to be so careful when they're doing them that they can't accidentally abort a fetus because then they'll be held liable for crime. So I think these are things I'd be worried about more than trans athletes, which are
more than a woman potentially being killed in a boxing ring by a trans athlete.
How many times has this happened?
Well, it hasn't yet, but it will do if it carries on.
Exactly, but it already has happened with the abortion thing. So that's what I'm more worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, but children's gender reassignment surgery, that is something which has been on the table for a long time. That's one. And two, when you're talking about this issue, it's kind of revisionist history, right? Now, suddenly the Democrats don't care, right? Oh, we it was always a vocal minority. No, it really wasn't. These were very, very public fights going on at the national level. And the reason is because this was a moral question. We're talking about a moral question from the viewpoint of the Christian right, which most right-wingers are Christians. You're actually assaulting their religion. You're assaulting their idea of what moral grounding even is. So to them, it's a huge deal. For Destiny, who has a completely different moral prism, it's really not a big deal, right? He doesn't really care about it. It's not that important. But to more to the average person, at least to the average right-wing conservative who's a Christian, it's a huge deal. The assault of the moral foundation is something they're going to take issue with. It's going to be one of their top priorities. So to say that Democrats were not fighting tooth and nail on behalf of trans inclusiveness, including in sports and everything, it's just insane revisionism. Of course,
they absolutely were. I mean, I look at someone like J.K. Rowling, who got absolutely, destroyed by the woke brigade for standing up for women's rights to fairness and equality. Now everyone lauds her for her heroic stance, but at the time, most women understandably put their head under the vicious parapet and didn't want to engage, and that left people like her out on their own, getting completely killed by people who profess to be the Be Kind lobby. And talking of which, I wanted to play you this, Destiny, because it really annoyed me. Not because it's a comedian making a joke, that's absolutely fine, nor that I want her banned or cancelled or any of those things. Just about the blatant hypocrisy of what we're about to hear. This is Chelsea Handler talking about Melania Trump.
I am your DEI host, Chelsea Handler. It was a huge year for biopics, a complete unknown about Bob Dylan, about Maria Callas, and Honora about Melania Trump.
Now, Destiny, what she's doing there is calling the First Lady a hooker, okay? She's perfectly entitled to say that. But she would never have done that joke, and nor would any comedian have ever done that joke about a Democrat First Lady at an awards ceremony. Ever. So my question is, are the Democrats, again, is it one rule for them, one rule for everybody else? And before you do the Republicans do other stuff, I know they do. And it just seems to me she would never have done that, and nor would any comedian if it was a Democrat First Lady.
I so don't care. I mean, like, what is the question? Was the joke too mean, or would she not have done it towards a Democrat? She probably wouldn't have done it towards a Democrat, because those types of people all tend to lean left. That'd be my guess, right? The same way that if it was any right-leaning comedians, they're probably not going to go super hard on anybody on the right. I mean, that seems pretty obvious. If you're asking if it's a mean joke, I mean, yeah, it's a mean joke. Lots of people tell mean jokes. I don't know what kind of...
No, it's not about the mean joke. Well, I think it's not really a joke. It's just calling the First Lady a hooker is just vile.
Okay, the majority of... I hear a ton of conservatives right now that say that Michelle Obama and the wife of the French Macron are trans. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Candace Owens. She said, I would stake my entire career on Macron's wife being trans.
That's not a ton of conservatives. I
see a lot of jokes about that Michelle Obama stuff being trans, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, the Michelle Obama dick jokes are very old and have been going on for a long time, right? I've seen those. You've seen those. And some of them were kind of funny. But the point is that with Chelsea Handler here, there's one of the most promiscuous women in Hollywood calling someone else a hooker is,
right,
by the way, hilarious. And also, you're talking about an entire party who is pro-sex work, pro-sex worker, pro-prostitution, pro-OnlyFans, does everything it can possibly do in order to enable those things. And then at the same time, they're like, oh, I can't believe the First Lady's a hooker. It's like, if it was anybody else who wasn't a Republican, they would probably glorify it. They'd be like, finally, our first prostitute First Lady. Like, I don't even understand why, the depths of the hypocrisy here is actually kind of outrageous, right?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Well, I think the joke has more to do with pointing out, I think, the hypocrisy on the other side. For instance, if you make a joke about, like, I don't know if we're allowed, like, for Steven Crowder being gay, that's a common joke that people on the left make. I don't think the joke is, haha, you're gay, so that's bad. I think the joke is more, you hate this thing and you are this thing, which would, my guess is going to be, I didn't see her whole performance. I don't even know the movie reference she was making, but that's probably the joke, is that you guys hate prostitutes and you are a prostitute. You hate gay people, you are gay.
No, that wasn't the joke. That wasn't the joke. She's just basically calling Melania Trump a hooker because she wants to imply that she's actually a hooker. And I think that the point I'm making is not that she's not entitled to do what I think was a crap joke. Of course she is. She's a comedian. It's the fact that you would never, ever see at an award ceremony in America, that I can ever remember, any comedian, right or left, make that kind of remark about a Democrat First Lady, a current First Lady, from a stage televised at an award show. That's the distinction.
I haven't seen every award show, but like, didn't Stephen Fry do a couple of really brutal award shows where he was like throwing it out to almost everybody? Am I making this up, dude?
Well, he's English.
Okay. All right.
Let's move on.
I guess you guys got away with that, huh? Yeah,
no, I don't think. I just don't think any of them have ever called a first lady a hooker. It just seemed to me, I don't know. It's all about crossing a line in comedy and all that. If you do it down the Comedy Store, you can do what you like. If you're on Twitter or X now, if you want to do things, okay, fine. I'm not going to say you should be cancelled.
Well, I thought we learned when that guy made the island of floating trash Puerto Rico joke. I thought we learned there were no lines anymore. Why are we crying about her making this joke now?
Well, no, because the left went completely nuts. They thought he did cross a line.
Well, now we've learned.
They did go crazy about it.
Now you can just joke about anything, I guess, right? We're all in that.
Well,
world
you
now.
should be able to joke about everything.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but we can also joke about her being, one of the most promiscuous women in Hollywood, and that she's speaking out of both sides of her mouth here because she's been a big time supporter of sex workers, and now suddenly,
I think that's a really good point.
She's a hooker. It's like, what are you talking about?
That's a very good point that she used it as a slur, having professed to be the complete opposite about sex workers. Very good point. Talking of stinking hypocrites and vile people, let's come to Kanye West, who started the week parading his wife, Bianca Censori, naked on the Grammys red carpet. We're looking at these images now. It was a deliberate derobing. Whatever. I mean, obviously any woman can do that. I thought it was all a bit cheap and embarrassing and pathetic, and I certainly wouldn't want to be doing that with my wife on a red carpet. What was far more serious to me was what then followed, which was literally just a bombardment of horrifically anti-Semitic, racist comments, and then some pornography that he began flying out. One of his posts, sometimes you have to do it like the pharaohs, make your Jews work for you, but watch them as close as you can, whip your Jews. What was interesting to me, Destiny, was ultimately Elon Musk, I messaged him directly on X publicly and said, you're going to just keep letting this guy do it. He's breaking every single rule that X has about this kind of stuff. So the normal rules weren't applying to him, and he was doing it to 32 million people. So the free speech argument is one thing. Actually, the X in-house rule book is another that wasn't being applied. So it seemed to be one rule for him, one rule for everybody else. But secondly, it was clearly, in my opinion, when you start talking about making Jews your slaves and whip them, you are actually now committing a crime. You're inciting actual violence against a group of people. That is a crime. It's not protected by the First Amendment. But what was interesting was Elon Musk only intervened and shut down the account for the NSFW pornography, which was completely legal. So, inciting people to violence against Jewish people was not considered to cross a line, but actually posting legal pornography was. I thought that was an interesting contradiction. What did you think?
Yeah, I feel like Kanye West, to me, it seems pretty sad because I feel like it's pretty obvious he has mental issues relating to, what is he, bipolar or whatever? So I don't know if he has these manic phases where he just starts going crazy, and I don't know if he either surrounds himself with yes men and fires everybody else, or if there's just a bunch of people like the Candaces in the world who are just around him to take advantage of him. But I mean, clearly he has these mentally unhinged moments. I'm sure him being as famous and as wealthy and as successful as he is probably doesn't help with that mania. As for rule enforcement on X, I mean, there's a million things that could be said about that. People have had a lot of complaints about Elon coming on. Obviously, a lot of people from the left feel like the platform has gotten a lot more hateful. A lot of people have said that the platform's gotten a lot more spammy. There's a lot more bot activity and everything. Some people on the right over the H-1B fiasco were upset that Elon seemed to be banning people who previously would have been okay because of their political / racial stances, I guess, or whatever. So yeah, it seems like Elon's been having a little bit of trouble getting a handle on how he exactly wants to present X's moderation to the world. Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I interviewed Kanye West a year and a half ago, and he denied having any mental illness, certainly denied having any treatment for any mental illness. And a lot of Jewish people in particular think it's just an excuse, that he just actually is a massive attention seeker. It was the Grammys. He's no longer a kind of, superstar rapper in people's eyes. He's just become this pretty unpleasant troll. And that he was doing all this to suck attention away from the Super Bowl, from the Grammys and so on. What do you think? Where's the truth about Kanye West, do you think?
I mean, he's done this before. I mean, he had a meme presidential campaign, right?
Yeah.
A total meme. ultimately. Some people took it seriously. Most people in the mainstream most certainly did not take it seriously. And yes, it's attention-seeking behavior. Stripping. First of all, this is not the first time this has happened. Remember that his wife also was in controversy because she had a cross on her buttocks, her naked buttocks, and then now she is at the Grammys, and what happens? He literally takes her clothes off, disrobes her. Humiliating, by the way, absolutely humiliating. I felt ashamed on her behalf. I hate saying that, right? But I just couldn't believe it, right? The disrespect towards your wife. That's, to me, in many ways unconscionable. When it comes to the X thing, though, the freedom of speech, what we're talking about here is this line in freedom of speech, which you're right. Elon Musk has not figured this out yet because it's not really possible to figure out. Is it okay, and this is what Kanye West is trying to say, is it okay to post as much, swastikas and I Heart Hitlers and, everything else on this as I want? And if it's not, why isn't it?
Yeah.
Why can't I?
I agree.
I thought this was about freedom of speech.
He's
pushing the number, and that drives attention to that account. And in many ways, it could have been a tactical move by Musk to say, well, maybe taking that down is not going to look good on me. And so when the time came when porn came up, he pushed it a little further, right? Okay, they're not banning my account. He's actually letting this go. How do we push the number a little bit further? Then he moves over to, okay, let's post hardcore porn. And then finally Elon Musk says, okay, enough. I tried to do the best I can. So Musk is trying to find this line. Kanye is purposely pushing the line so that he can test the limits of Musk and this free speech on X and try to point out hypocrisy, this kind of thing. But yes, I agree. It's for attention in a big way. I don't think anybody would disagree with that, even his supporters.
Yeah. Let's turn to the Trump-Elon Oval Office presser. We've got a sort of this.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it.
Destiny, what did you make of that? Obviously, it's very unusual. You've got the richest man in America standing next to the President of the United States in the Oval Office by the Resolute desk. He's got his kid with him who's picking his nose. It's all a bit random and weird and surreal. However, I did watch it all, and I kept thinking to myself, if I was an average American watching this, hearing what Elon Musk is doing to federal overspending, I'd be cheering him on. I'd be all in favor of this.
Yeah, unfortunately, the average American, I guess, or the average person just has no idea how government works or functions. And I guess weird and surreal is just the way to describe now, or illegal, I guess, is the way to describe that this administration has decided to address programs that they don't like. If you want to cut down on waste, fraud, and abuse, I don't think anybody would necessarily have a problem with it, but they keep saying waste, fraud, and abuse when what they mean is programs that I don't like. And they've already taken several almost certainly illegal actions in trying to basically unilaterally dismantle organizations like USAID that have been independently authorized by Congress that the president doesn't have the ability to do, to dismantle unilaterally. And now you've seen TROs coming out from the judiciary that's telling him, hey, you have to stop. There was the one on the federal spending freeze that not only was a TRO issued telling him that you have to stop freezing these funds. Now another judge has said you are violating the TRO. You need to stop this immediately. So I guess if you don't care about the legality or the process and procedure or anything having to do with the structure of government, I guess it's a cool thing. But if you care about like following the law or the rules or maintaining your government, then it would probably be a horrific thing. But
Andrew?
Yeah, you got this idea. I've heard Destiny kind of talk about this before. When he's saying, okay, these are illegal actions and possibly the court's not going to be able to catch up with these illegal actions. And so Trump is just going to basically continue with what he's considering to be illegal actions. Thing is like people forget about things like jury nullification or like the idea that you can have laws. And even if you're the enforcer of the laws, in this case, the executive branch, you don't actually have to enforce these things. There's you're put there for a reason, just like a jury can nullify a law by saying, even though the law says you're guilty, I can still come back with a not guilty verdict. What's happening here is we don't even know what the waste, fraud, and abuse is. And so there's an audit going on, and this is exactly what Musk is doing. They're trying to audit this and get it in front of the attention of the American people to say, look, We don't want condoms for the Taliban. That was 15 million. Promotion of atheism in Nepal for 500,000. French LGBTQ programs in West and Central Africa for $1 million, right? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. $200 million 20 days in. I think that the American people do deserve to know that. And I don't think that they would, that this would be front and center or a thing we would be focusing on absent this audit. And I think that more of these government agencies should be audited. Now, Destiny can he can say, well, technically, due to the rule of law, we have judges who are making these impositions and this and that. It's like, yeah, that's fine. But that's all part of the process, too. It's all part of the process of law. The process of law is playing out exactly like it should. Judges are supposed to create injunctions if something illegal is going on, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing wrong, though, with auditing these places. And for the spirit of transparency, I think that leftists are just pissed for no good reason. Like they go, oh, Musk is collecting all these people's information. It's like unelected officials at the DMV are collecting my information. The unelected officials at the Social Security office are collecting my information. Like so many government offices collect my information by people who I definitely didn't elect, and neither did Destiny. They're totally fine with that. But for some reason with these guys, no, that's too much.
That's a good point.
I mean, the reason. Well,
that's
no,
a good point.
The reason why is because these things have been authorized by law. There's a process and procedure there. The Social Security Administration was created by Congress. There's a process and procedure by which they collect data, and they have a process and procedure by which they store data and who's allowed to access it. Elon Musk is definitionally an unelected bureaucrat who is now part of a shadow government who is going from agency to agency, cutting whatever he decides is necessary. In terms of there being transparency, all of this stuff was already publicly available. They've literally shuttered the USAID offices. What do you mean? They've literally frozen payments from the Treasury.
Yeah,
shuttered them as in they shuttered them as in they tried to give a mass recall saying all the employees needed to come home, which was stopped by a TRO, by a judge. And now a lot of these programs, there was just recently a report by the head of the Treasury guy who now is fired, who was saying that there's a whole bunch of food and stuff that we ship to other countries. It's just going to spoil because now we've cut off funding and money for it. All of these things have just been unilaterally cut by Elon Musk and Trump without any authorization from Congress, despite the fact that Congress was the one that authorized the funds for these programs and authorized these offices and agencies. If you want to remove all of these things, that's fine. If you don't want $500,000 being spent for trans ballets in Nepal for atheists or whatever, that's fine. If you don't want it, then Congress has to defund it. That's the way that this process works. It's not up to the president unilaterally to decide what he likes or doesn't like. That's already been passed
hang on.
by the Congress.
Well, hang on.
It's not up to you.
That's actually, I was going to say, look, that's not actually correct. He's entitled to do this, and then there can be legal.
Absolutely not.
Well, hang on. Then there can be legal challenges, and Trump made it clear in the Oval Office yesterday he would accept what a judge said. Now, by contrast, I remember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez when it came to the Texas ruling in a court by a judge about abortion medication, for example. She said that the Democrats should not accept what that judge had ruled. Right? So why is it one rule? Why is it one rule for Democrats that they can ignore a judge's order with impunity? But when President Trump says, if you want to challenge this, no problem, I would accept the ruling of the judge. Isn't that democracy?
What years was AOC the president of the United States?
What difference does that make?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because she's not in the position to do these things. She can give the advice on it. If you wanted me to ask myself, like,
she's an elected lawmaker who doesn't want to obey the law.
A lawmaker. She's in a different branch of government. She's part of the legislature. We're not talking about the legislature. We're not talking about a random lawmaker right now. We're talking about the president of the United States doing things to intentionally contravene. You can't just say you could break the law.
President Biden did the same over student loans.
No, he absolutely didn't. When the Supreme Court shut him down in one thing, then he took a different avenue. It was not the same. President Biden did not ignore temporary restraining orders. It wasn't issuing TROs to stop what he was doing with the loan forgiveness. It's a totally different thing. To say that this is not the same. It's not the same process. It's not the same stuff. Vance and other people have said over and over. I'm still responding to peers. Vance and others have made it clear over and over again. They've quoted the Andrew Jackson quote, and they've said, well, we should just resist the judiciary. It is not part of law and order. It's not part of checks and balances for the executive to say, well, I don't care what a judge says. We'll just do whatever, which is what they're currently doing. And a judge has already said they've done with the TRO that was placed on them, having to do with freezing federal funding. So they've already broken with what the judges are telling them to some extent. And at the end of the day, there's no way to check and balance the executive if they're just going to do what they want to do. You have no checks and balances there. What are men in robes and lawmakers going to walk down and fight with the U.S. Marshals and the FBI? Like, it's not going to happen.
Andrew?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So there's an issue. What you have is an issue of authority. So Trump he's trying to expand the limits of his office as fast as possible, and I understand why. Last time he was there, they were trying to impeach him from basically day one, made up this phony Russian collusion nonsense. He comes in now, he has nothing to lose. He's going to expand his office as quickly as possible, try to move things as quickly as he possibly can. And most importantly, he doesn't trust the judicial branch. That's what he said himself in his various speeches. I don't trust them to give fair rulings. I don't trust that they're actually there in respect to actual law. He doesn't actually even believe that. So what he's doing is he's expanding as quickly. Hang on, my turn. So he's expanding it as quickly as he possibly can. But he did say that he would abide by the rulings of these judges. He just recently said this, and we don't know what's gonna come of that. Right now, he's expanding this office to try to figure out these audits, this type of thing. I don't see what he's actually done wrong. You're already panicking, but we haven't really had a chance to see what happens if he abides by these rulings, doesn't abide by these rulings.
Right.
We don't really know that yet.
Right.
Well, Doge in and of itself is probably a wholly illegal agency. I don't think that Doge even exists. I don't think they have the legal capacity to even do what Trump wants them to do, number one. Number two, bringing up the Russia collusion stuff is funny when the entire foundation for Hunter Biden and Burisma was entirely fabricated. That person's already been convicted by the FBI for lying about the origination for that. And three, Donald Trump was already found to have people who were working with him collude with Russia. Roger Stone did it, but he was pardoned by Donald Trump, the same way Donald Trump pardoned all 1,600 J6 offenders.
The same way that Biden
Biden
does the whole crime family, right? Pardons the whole crime family. But that's fine.
Oh,
yeah.
How many crimes have they committed? The Republicans had like 8 years to investigate them and found nothing. How do you know? You had 8 years to investigate it. What do you mean? How many special counsels?
How did we have 8 years to investigate
They had nothing. Because they've been investigating him from as soon as Biden was in office. They've been investigating this guy Hunter Biden over and over again, and they found nothing. That's why the charges we got at the end of the day were for tax fraud. Well, for Joe Biden, they found nothing ever. They've been investigating
hang on. This isn't going to make your points any better, and I just want to make sure that we can get back to the actual point.
Destiny, if none of them have committed crimes, why do they all need preemptive pardons?
Yeah, they all need pardons.
Because Trump has shown over and over again that he doesn't need crimes to start chasing down people, and the Republicans have no problem hunting people down to try to go on fishing.
And the Democrats haven't been doing that to him for the last year.
Give me one example.
Stormy bloody Daniels. Honestly.
Did he break a law? Did he break a law?
What
also, that wasn't the federal government. That was the state.
Are you honestly happy that
that's fine.
The only time an American hang on, the only time an American president
don't like the law. No, I don't care.
The only time an American president was ever dragged through a criminal court was over a one-night stand with a porn star 20 years ago. Utterly preposterous.
It wasn't over a one-night stand. It was over misappropriating campaign funds and then creating a paper trail. You can, if you don't like the law, that's fine.
You've had presidents like Obama waging illegal drone programs, killing thousands of innocent people. Why is he not in a criminal court?
Illegal as per who? Illegal as per who? Which crimes? What are we talking about?
You don't think illegal drone programs are criminal? You can't just say illegal because it sounds...
Illegal as per who?
Oh, you think they're
You just say illegal because it sounds bad. Apparently so.
What about the illegal invasion of Iraq by George Bush?
What are we talking about for illegal invasion? Illegal
I'm talking about crimes.
Which crime? Which crime? What crime are you talking about?
A crime than sleeping with a porn star.
Misappropriated campaign funds.
I'm making the point. The only time an American president has ever been dragged through a criminal court was not over running illegal drone programs or illegally invading sovereign countries. It was over an alleged one-night stand with a porn star that involved a bit of paper shuffling. Yeah. It was completely ridiculous.
You have strong feelings about what you think should be a crime or not, but if you don't care about the law, there's no legal argument to be had then. If you just think it's a crime because it's bad, you don't like it, or if you think it's a crime or it's not a crime because you don't think it's a big deal, that's fine. But I mean, like, if you want to have the legal argument,
logic for you. As long as bad things are done via the process of law, that's fine. But if you do good things absent the process of law, that's bad. It's like, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, I know. Here's my chain of logic. I know it's hard to follow. If you are a criminal, it's because you've broken a law. Not all bad things are criminal, okay? Not all bad things are crimes. You can think somebody did a bad thing, but they didn't commit a crime. Donald Trump committed crimes in New York State, probably committed crimes insofar as Georgia's concerned, and he's committed federal crimes insofar as the Mar-a-Lago documents case was and the J6 case was. He won't be held accountable for all of that, thankfully, because he's dismissed it. He does everything he can to elude accountability, but those are crimes. If you want to say, I don't like the war in Iraq and that's illegal as per who? We could talk about the ICJ or the ICC if you want, but that gets obviously way more complicated.
No, that wasn't what my point was. My point was
crimes.
Yeah. It wasn't my point. My point was to say that from your view, you're only concerned about process of law
The
in
law,
this case.
yes, the
right?
law, yes,
Not
correct,
about, not,
yes.
hang on. Not about the moral implications of the actual waste, fraud, and abuse that is brought up. Only that the technical process is followed. So it's like, okay, but what if they're not following your technical process, but they're actually finding waste, fraud, and abuse from a moral implication? That's actually a good thing. Now, I don't even agree with you that they're breaking any laws. I don't even agree that they're breaking any laws. These challenges are brand new. We have no idea how this is going to play out. You don't, I don't. But we have no idea
We
if
have a
he's
good
going
idea.
to
We think we
adhere
can.
to what the court is going to say. No, we don't have a good idea. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's not. We don't know for sure that Trump is going to just go, oh, I'm just going to Jackson the courts. The courts can enforce their own law. Like, that is speculation that's beyond the pale.
They've
I don't
already
even
done
think
that. A
there's
judge has
political
already
will.
issued a ruling saying they've already violated a TRO. So that's already happened to some extent. Now, how far will it go? Who knows? But they've already done exactly that. Doge does not have the legal authority to go in and unilaterally.
No, they're giving a legal
shutter
challenge
federal
back,
offices.
Destiny.
They have. They
Yeah,
didn't
they're
even
giving a legal
respond.
challenge back.
Read the TROs. Their response was, "Oh, we're going after fraud," and the judge laughed and he said, "This isn't even a response."
That doesn't. Wait. So yes, they are. Not only are they going to respond to this, but they're setting up for legal challenges to go back the other direction. This is obvious. And by the way, this is part of the process. Like, I don't know why you just pretend like these politicians don't expand their offices all the time. And that's what the judicial does, right? It comes in, it'll rein it in. It'll say this is constitutional. It's not constitutional. You can do this. You can't do this. They do it all the time. There's so much precedent for this, in fact. So if he doesn't adhere to what the judges end up saying, to what these courts actually say when he has no more legal standing to fight it, then you have a leg to stand on. Right now, you don't.
He's already done that.
He's acting, acting the best he can in the ability of the office of the President of the United States.
Chaps, we will see.
So the goal,
because
the goal should be to just break as many laws as possible then and then see what happens.
No,
That's
Trump
the
has
right
made it clear
course
he'll
of
accept
action?
the ruling of the judges. If he doesn't, that's another matter. Look, I want to end
That
on
doesn't even follow anyway. Like,
Guys, I
that
want to
doesn't
leave.
follow logically.
Thanks for watching. There is hope in Jesus Christ. He will never leave you or forsake you. Like and subscribe and join our Discord for friends and more.